Whoa, there's everybody. Oh, a whole bunch of panel or attendees coming in. That's great. While everybody's entering, thank you all so much for joining us today. My name is Jordan Huggins. I will be your very, very brief host at the top of this webinar. It's been a while since we've done one of these, and we thank you so much. While everybody's coming in. Oh gosh, they're really pouring in. We'll give it a couple of minutes, let things slow down for a second. If you have any issues, I just want to make everybody a little bit more comfortable with their Zoom interaction panel. I've got a lot more options than you guys do. But if you need to chat me, or if you're having any technical issues overall, I would just urge you, you can chat me directly through the chat button. Click that, make sure that you have selected my name, or just let's not bombard the host and panelists. Again, I think I'm just listed as marketing@alvanon.com. The username there, you can just chat me directly if you have any technical issues or anything like that. If you have any notes, not necessarily feedback, but inputs, questions, I would urge everybody, you can submit those in the Q&A or directly in the chat. We're keeping track of those. And we will actually have a section at the end of this webinar for the panelists and Don and Tracy to field questions. So I urge everybody to post questions and everything in the chat. You can just send it to everyone. Again, we're going to give it a couple minutes here while everybody's pouring in. It seems like it's slowing down just a bit. Okay, we still have a bunch of people pouring in here. We're about 450 attendees. Thank you all so much for attending and tuning in with us today, taking time out of your busy schedules. I know how, if it's anything like my schedule, it's been super busy. It really feels like the last 2.5 years. My name is Jordan Huggins. I think we should give it one more minute, but in that time, before I hand things off, to Dawn and Tracy and the rest of our panelists, just a couple of high-level notes. If you have any tech issues or any audio issues, first of all, make sure you've chosen the right audio output and video output. You can do that just clicking on the mute button. Everybody should be muted at this point, but if you're having audio issues, I'm talking right now, you should be able to hear me. So you can, there's a little caret or up arrow next to the microphone, and you can toggle your outputs and inputs from that. If you have any tech issues, I would urge you to use the chat function. You can chat me directly. It should say marketing or host and panelists, and you can send it to us, and I can do my best to help you during the webinar. For everybody, this is also being recorded and will be made available on demand at the completion of the webinar. So you can send it out to any coworkers or anybody that you think would be interested in watching this that could make it today. But you can also check back in on Zoom on our website, alvanon.com, under our events and webinar section. You can watch it after today if you have to cut out earlier or anything like that. But if you have any technical issues, please chat us and I'll do my best to help you. And at this point, we've still got a bunch of people coming in, but we just broke 500, and I feel like that's a good place to start, probably, Don. If this is your first Alvanon webinar or event, welcome. And if you're a repeat customer, super welcome to you, and thank you so much for being a fan of us. If you're not familiar with Alvanon, Alvanon is a fashion technology company focused on the body and its application within the apparel industry. We don't make clothes, we make clothes fit for everybody. This session that you are attending or have chosen to watch today, in this webinar, Alvanon consultants Don Howard and Tracy Rickert will lead this panel discussion to talk about 3D fitting strategies, how they have evolved in the past 2 years, and what is next for 3D fitting. Now, at this point, I'd like to go ahead and hand it off to Don, who is our Executive Director of Consulting at Alvanon. Don has over 30 years of experience in apparel retail, design, and manufacturing. He joined Alvanon in 2010 as a consultant and was named Executive Director in 2013 to head its global team of consumer insight and business strategists. Now, I think that's plenty for me. Don, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you, Jordan, and thank you. Welcome, everybody. It's so great that you could join us today, and I really appreciate all the salutations coming in on text. A lot of friends, blast from the past, current clients, super to have you. And we're delighted, of course, to have this wonderful panel with us today to discuss digital product creation, 3D fitting in the real world. Now, there are so many in the industry that make contributions to the evolution of 3D. And here at Alvanon, we have a very focused position in the 3D equation with our clients and our industry partners that allows us to evolve and push each other as we continue to innovate. And this is a responsibility that we take very seriously. And at the same time, we've got a very unique privilege of working with individual clients who can be on any range of involvement in 3D. Of course, we've been partners over the years with the early adopters. We have many clients who still have not started in 3D. And then, of course, there's a whole range of folks in between. So in addition, really, over the last couple of years now, there's really no shortage of stories about how we were all forced to do things in a different way. And that includes us at Alvanon. And along with that came a very practical realization of the benefits of working digitally. And then, of course, seeing the opportunity to push those opportunities further. Now, we've seen that many organizations over the last few years have developed some very aggressive digital product creation goals and metrics that have gone well beyond, the traditional line planning, digital showrooms, prototype renderings, and really have started to get into the weeds of how we approve product in 3D, which is something that I believe 4 or 5 years ago, we probably wouldn't have been seeing so aggressive. So if you're working in an organization or know someone who does work in an organization where there are these very lofty digital product creation goals, including approval in 3D, it's a daunting challenge. So, we've assembled a group today to discuss this topic. So we're really excited about sharing this. And without any further ado, Tracy, can you lead us off, and then ladies continue to introduce yourselves.
Perfect. Thanks, Don. Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Tracy Rickert. I'm also from Alvanon. We have a tremendous group of panelists today. I'm very excited that you could be here and that the panelists could carve out some time to be part of this discussion today. We thought, as just an icebreaker, we'd maybe kick it off with the panelists introducing themselves, telling us how long you've been in 3D and what is your current role at your company today. Gina, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. Hi, I'm Gina Patterson with Columbia Sportswear. Columbia has been on the 3D or virtual journey for about 7 years, I think. That was when we did our first pilot. And my role at Columbia is Senior Fit Engineering Manager.
All right. Thanks, Gina. Ladies from Walmart, Libby or Elizabeth?
Hey, it's Libby Wilson. I am a senior manager of tech design now at Walmart. I work on seasonal and active, seasonal being swimwear and outerwear, which are some of the hardest things to do in 3D. But I recognize some of these names out there that are saying hi, because I was a trainer for Browswear for about a year, and I had so much fun doing it, and I love just spreading the good news about 3D. So.
Awesome. Thank you. Elizabeth.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Kraidich. I am a technical designer at Walmart for girls' dresses, sets, and tops. And my 3D journey began in university and then throughout my career. I don't want to give away my age, so I won't say how long ago.
You're in good company, Elizabeth. I think you might be the youngest of all of us. Maybe. And last but not least, Kim, could you tell us about yourself?
Hello, I'm Kimberly Wick, and unlike Elizabeth, I'm going to give away my age because I've been a pattern maker for over 25 years, and I've been working in 3D for 11 or a little bit over 11 years. I'm currently a technical consultant on the blocks and grading team at Alvanon.
You know,
Awesome.
and Kim, I just wanted to add, you know, Kim's kind of an example about how we at Alvanon decided that we really needed to accelerate our work in 3D. And many of you might know that we have always provided blocks to industry and kind of doing it the old fashioned way. And for those of you who know what it's like to create blocks and develop a block library, you know how long that takes. And it's a very technical and evolved process, but you know, the end result is super important. We hired Kim as a 3D super user. And now, you know, we are making the transition, or have made the transition, to where we're creating our blocks that map to our forms in 3D. Okay, and in addition to that, Kim and the team work in multiple softwares to understand the differences and the nuances between them, so that once she creates a block in one software, she can judge and see how it's reacting in others. So, you know, it's been a wonderful experience for us to dig deeper and learn more. We're really proud of Kim on the team and the contribution that she and our team are making in 3D. So anyway, hey, Tracy, why don't you lead us off with some of the interview questions?
Perfect. Okay, so you guys can see we have a wide array of roles and experiences on this panel. We're super excited to get started. I think it's going to be a great conversation today. So first question for the panel: how has working remotely in the last 2 years or so pushed your strategies for digital product creation?
I'll go ahead and do a small little answer for Walmart. We started out around the same time as Columbia, and it took a while for us to get where we are. But I will say that working from home definitely accelerated that growth exponentially. But there was a lot we learned along the way. In a world where you're kind of forced to be agile, you just have to use as many tools as you can. And thank goodness we were where we were in using digital samples.
Yeah, awesome. I think it didn't necessarily accelerate our numbers, but it pushed the envelope when it came to team members being willing to accept. And so I think it kind of helped us a little bit to kind of get that going.
Yeah. Gina, you mean like in terms of acceptance, and we don't really have a choice because we need to approve this and it's digital or nothing, right? So people kind of got on the bus where maybe they wouldn't have previously.
Yeah. So we were lucky. We were fortunate to have some solid ground to get started from. But I think where we might have seen pushback, we definitely were able to keep things going.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So how about Don spoke a minute ago about metrics and strategies. Did that change at all in this work from home kind of world, strategies or metrics in terms of 3D fit approving in 3D. Do you guys feel like that moved the needle at all?
For us, we've had kind of a set strategy of how much we're going to. We started out small, and how much are we going to try to increase year over year. I think the team did an amazing job of doing more than we expected in those first few rounds or seasons. And so I wouldn't say that we needed to accelerate, but we've definitely seen some advancement.
Nice. Libby, how about you guys?
Yeah, so our goal has always been to reduce sampling and have that as our metric when we're looking at timelines and how things are progressing within the technical design world. So that being said, reducing sampling is one of the major ways to get into the digital world. But the way that we get there from category to category is really different. Some have adopted it in a more like all-in view, and some are just using it kind of where needed. So we're trying to gain trust in that sort of way. I think Elizabeth kind of has a little bit more insight into her team that's really gone all in.
Yeah, so Kids team was one of the first teams to pilot Walmart 3D at Walmart. So we've been a little bit ahead of the rest of the departments, but we have been able to do most of our development in 3D. So we have come a long way from the
Wow,
start. Yeah.
that's huge. That's
And then
awesome.
even going into, like you said, approvals in 3D also. This has just given us the opportunity to be more empowered with 3D.
You know, we've seen over the years where people will start in kids wear and children's wear because they feel like it's a place to start proving some success, right? And making some traction with the team. Did you feel like it was because of the product category that helped that go faster or more smoother, or do you have an opinion on that?
Libby, would you like to answer that one?
It's both. I think there's a lot of really quick wins in kids, especially with all the graphics and prints that they use. But I also think they have it just depends on the leadership and the willingness to accept new technologies. And I think it just happened that the kids team really did a good job at embracing.
Did it maybe help that the children always stay the same size? So you don't have to deal with the growing fit model.
I mean, in 3D, they stay the same size.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh,
in 3D.
rolling through fit models. Yeah.
That's a good one.
Very true. Okay, awesome. Thanks, guys. So let's switch gears a little bit and talk about, in this world of digital product creation, you're working in 3D. Do you guys feel like when you look at those strategies from 2 or 3 years ago, do you feel like you had the tools and processes in place already to kind of take off? Or were there maybe some things that were missing?
I think we had tools in place, but we've definitely morphed our tools as we've learned more about what team members need in order to feel more comfortable using this software and approving in this software. So what can we do to bring those cross-functional partners in and get that buy-in that we need?
Yeah, that makes sense, Gina. Elizabeth or Libby, do you want to say anything about that? Do you guys feel like you had everything you needed? Or, I mean, it's hard to even remember back 2 years ago, right? Where you're like, okay, let me remember what we had 2 years ago.
Distant memory, huh?
Well, it's been like ever expanding, ever like each season, it's a different evolution. And as long as we have a seat at the table and we can say, you know, we really need this and put it in our milestones as like, this is the best checkpoint along the way. So we're not going through sample after sample. Then it really makes a difference. And we've definitely embedded it in our process.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, so I feel like I have heard a lot over the last 2 years from brands and clients about how working remotely has really changed how they view their vendor community, and they've had to rely more heavily on vendor involvement because you couldn't always get a sample in-house or get it in the timeline that you needed it. And so relying on vendors became much more important. So in that world where maybe you're getting some assistance with vendors, either creating renderings for you or approving fit on your behalf, can you guys talk a little bit about what kind of guardrails did you need to put in place in order for yourself or the team to feel comfortable sort of releasing a little bit of that, the control that you have when you're doing it all yourself? And relying on a vendor to maybe do some of those pieces for you? What did you have to put in place?
Every good foundation starts with standards, and in technical design world, we love our standards. So we worked with a 3D program, the company that we're working with now, to be able to really get a quality standards manual in place that was good. And maybe it worked for the first year, but we have to look at it year after year to see, okay, how has the technology improved? How can we update this? And we also talk to our vendor world to say, hey, what's realistic? And we get their feedback on our virtual quality standards manual as well, just so we know, like, we're not just dictating, it's a partnership. And it's good to hear as much as we can from suppliers and get good or bad feedback, just to be able to align and work together. And sometimes, we have to break our own rules.
Yeah.
But as long as we're aligned in what our internal team is doing, and then getting feedback from our external partners, we can then kind of move forward in a smart way to be able to utilize the tools. And having those guardrails is really important, just to say, we're not going to accept it in this certain way. We really want to see this as a digital twin. Yeah.
So Libby, when you say, I know what you mean when you say virtual quality standards, but I don't know for people who maybe aren't in 3D yet, if everyone understands, what do you mean by that? Like, can you give us a couple examples of what did you need to put, what did you need to build a standard for, or what was happening that you were like, oh, okay, this is something we don't love seeing come back. You know what I mean?
Yeah, good question. You really want to kind of rein it in. You've got to start with simple things, like how you're going to name the item as it gets shared. What kind of fabric are you going to accept? What kind of patterns are you going to accept? We only accept, our Alvanon fit forms. We won't accept other items to view, because that is our standard. These are just the building blocks that we need in there, and to be able to make sure that the digital sample comes across and it looks as realistic as possible without being cumbersome.
Yeah. Yeah. Gina, how about you?
We definitely, the VQS has been, visual quality standards has been super helpful. I think it's really the naming convention, so it doesn't, whatever's new doesn't get lost in the shuffle of trying to share. And so people know where to find it, because you don't want to be looking through 700 different folders trying to find that one new thing. But I think there's also, and maybe we get back to this later, but there's the overstyling that can happen. So showing the visuals of what do we want something to look like, so that we can trust that that's the way it's going to look in when we get a physical sample in person.
Yeah.
We don't want to get something that's to get that virtual version that looks amazing, and then get something later in person that's maybe not what we were wanting to approve. So the realistic rendering is super important.
So Gina, did you have to update your standards manual? I know you would have had one from, the beginning. What did that look like for you?
It was, when we first started, it was real basic, but man, it's a thing to put together. It takes a long time, and it's so worth it to have that consistency. So when we receive that digital asset, it's not like, oh, this is from vendor A and this is from vendor B. All of our assets, we want them to look the same. We want them to look consistent, so that we're not nitpicking on something odd that might have come across, but rather, how do we want to assess this design for the season? Is it appropriate?
Yeah. This reminds me, Gina, of, I remember a client telling me a little while back that shearing was an issue, and it very much depended on the vendor's skill level in 3D and in which program they happened to be using. So some vendors were really good at making shearing look like it really would look in real life, and other ones, it was not there, and it just took some time for vendors to be retrained and pick up on, get more experience really in how to render those things and how to make them look like they really look.
I think having standards when it comes to what an elastic waistband should look like, and what is your ratio for something like that? What even when it comes to using certain fabrics or sub fabrics, what's appropriate? And if you're doing loft, what is that? What are those standards? What does an 800 gram look like? Those are the kind of things that that I think really allow for that cross-functional trust to be able to get there.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, good discussion. Let's talk a little bit about fabric, because I know what it's like for us trying to get fabric right. But when you fit in 3D, how do you calibrate your eye in terms of what you're looking at, and whether you can trust that fabric really would look like that? And also, how do you calibrate your team? Elizabeth, do you want to talk about that?
Sure. So when fitting in 3D, it's really important for us to use all the tools 3D has to offer that physical sampling would not, such as the tension and pressure maps. So in the visual you're being shown, a Walmart associate was able to evaluate the fit consistency across different types of fabric printing methods, such as solid, foil print, all over print, just to make sure that the consistency for the fitting was the same. And they use this with the pressure map, and it really creates a great visual to show the team how different fabric can be. And then,
that's huge, right? Because you looking at a picture in 3D, you wouldn't be able to tell that the print is going to feel different than a solid would.
Yes, and this was actually evaluated further after getting some customer feedback. So it was great validation. And then even showing this to team members helps us get cross-functional buy-in for the 3D. And then even some parts of it, such as they ask to see these views when we're showing them the 3D, like they learn how important it is. So
Interesting.
it's great.
Super. It's the almost substitute for the hand feel and the weight and the reaction that you could see it on the heat map, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
Libby, do you have anything else to add to that? Sorry.
Oh, sorry, Lynn.
No, I think you got it. No.
Okay, perfect. So Gina, I know you mentioned a minute ago talking about just styling and over styling. This is one of your examples. Can you tell us about this one?
Yeah, so this is kind of alluding to what I was talking about, where that shirt on the left looks amazing, but when you kind of give it a closer look, it's really kind of tight over the rear. So in looking at it and kind of releasing those either the freeze or the pinch or whatever, it kind of, oh, this is what the garment will actually look like. So we need to be able to see what the team has kind of adapted their eye to know when to question if something looks just overly amazing. To kind of go in and maybe undress and redress that avatar to see what is the reality here, because then that'll give the fit engineers an opportunity to look at that pattern, look how it's actually falling on the avatar, and make those fit adjustments. Maybe we get a second virtual before we get a virtual or a physical prototype, whatever needs to be able to happen to make it right before we cut.
Yeah. That's really good advice. Undress and redress, because then all of the styling goes away, right? And you can kind of really see what it's doing.
Yeah. And it's a learning for not only for us here, but for the factories as well. I mean, they're really striving to make it look perfect, but there's that line of have it look consistent so it doesn't look like it's from factory A or factory B, but also make it look real.
Yeah.
So we can assess.
Right. Because really, what good does it do you, right? I think back to like maybe a year and a half ago when we were doing some vendor training with vendors around 3D, and they were doing that very thing. Like I want the brand to be okay with it. And so I'm going to overstyle it and make it look beautiful. But then it just caused the need for an extra round of sampling, because when you get the sample and you see that it doesn't fit like that at all, then you just have to order another one. So I think through some painful trial and error, the vendor community figured out like maybe this isn't such a great thing in the end, you know?
Yeah, it's kind of, you don't want to negate the whole savings or calendar progression.
Yeah.
And the essence of the reality of fitting in the real world, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. How about movement, guys? So Elizabeth gave us an example of heat maps where you can sort of get a sense of how that garment would feel in terms of tightness or looseness. Are any of you guys using avatars that either can walk or, have agile movement or just different poses to help you in the fitting process?
So I
Hi,
don't
Libby.
currently, but I love to look, like, just to see when I have time, especially for active. You need that movement to be in there, and I am very adamant about looking at items on my fit model, and I need a fit model for movement. But if I don't have that, I think there's really cool tools in 3D, like changing the pose, freezing the pose, using that tension and pressure map, and then also animation is really fun to use. So I think, and it just dazzles. I think for me, just personally as a technical designer, I need to see that movement, and it's good to see. I think, there will be more technological advancements in the future for movement, I'm sure, but I think if you don't have a fit model, looking at it on a parametric or an avatar that's able to move with the garment is great.
Yeah, in the absence of being able to get it on a fit model.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kim, do you use poses in your development work?
Yes, yes, all the time, especially if we're looking at, maybe some trousers or pants. We'll maybe look at it with arms down to start out with, front and back, but looking at the side, we'll raise up the arms so that we can see without the arms in the way. The same thing on shirts. We will simulate them in stages. So we'll leave off the sleeves and maybe the collar and collar stand and just simulate the shirt, and then look at it from the side, lift the arms up so we can see what's happening at the armhole, and then add the sleeves back on, add the collar and collar stand back on, and then simulate again also. So that's what we use for, as far as movement goes. We're also using the tension and pressure maps to check, especially in the knits.
Super.
Mhm.
Yeah. So how about fabric? What role does fabric play in 3D? And how do you calibrate so you can trust what you're looking at? Libby, what do you think about that?
I love this question because I feel like fabric is like one of the most important things in 3D, like when it comes to the top three. Obviously your pattern, your fit, your avatar, which thank you for providing, and your fabric. Fabric is key in that trio. So it's one of the first things that when I was a trainer, I would train to, and it was probably one of the first things that would leave the trainees' minds. They would be like, why does this not look real? Why does this? Oh, okay. And then once they used tested fabric, even, not just the physics, the texture coming through, then people could really see and believe that this is the same as what their physical is. As long as that fabric is tested properly, I can trust what I'm looking at. Like Elizabeth's photo with the 3 tension and pressure map, that wouldn't have come across like that if you didn't have properly tested fabric. So I think one of the things when you're looking at different ways to use 3D, always ask about fabric. It is inherent in the fit samples that you get, and it's inherent in your digital as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
agree. I agree. And with fabric, I think it's super important. I think that, all of your 3D providers, they're going to provide you with a library that you can use. But we all know that you can have 2 pieces of fabric that have the exact same weave, composition, weight, and they are going to perform completely different in a real sample, maybe because of the wash or some other finish that's been put on it. So relying on those built-in libraries to get accurate results to your sewn sample is probably not the best route. But we've also discovered with testing, we've played around with having fabric tested from different places. So I like what you said, Abby, about having your fabric tested properly, because we've gotten different results from having fabrics tested at different facilities. There is a human element involved in fabric testing. And we all know that, different 3D providers are all looking for different data formats. So if you're working with multiple 3D softwares, testing becomes really cumbersome because you're having to test for each individual 3D provider and get that that format for your software.
Yeah. Kim, I think I remember back maybe 6 months ago, the 3DRC was looking to come up with, I might not say this correctly, but like a 3D conversion, like a mathematical conversion between the different testing formats. Have you played around with that at all or tested it at that part at all?
Well, I think that, that's something that 3DRC is working on. I'm not sure how far they've come along with that, but I don't think the 3D providers have picked up on that, because currently we're still looking at different formats, the U3MA and the FD, FX and the ZFab. You know, the software providers are still looking for those formats right now.
Okay. Man, that would
Hopefully,
really be something.
Crossing my
Such an
fingers.
such an important perspective. And again, it goes back to, you have to know what you're seeing and what you're working with in 3D. It's not to discredit the software, because all softwares are going to have, pluses and minuses, but be acutely aware of what it is that you're really dealing with.
Well, yeah. And especially if you happen to be working into different softwares, or your vendors are, we do hear a fair number of brands that have more than one, and they use them for different things.
Yeah.
So fabric is just something you need to be aware that you have to potentially test it,
Yeah.
one,
And as far
one
as,
for each.
let me just add one more thing about fabric. It's not just, coming up with the right physics for it, but then you got to look at the garment itself too. If there's multi-layers of fabric in that garment, if there's inner linings or inner support materials, linings, you want to duplicate all of that the best that you can. Even the hem on a pair of pants, you take that hem away, you're not going to have the weight of that hem, and your pants aren't going to hang the same way. So you got to look at the construction of the garment too, and the layers of fabric that go into it.
Yeah. Good point, Kim. Okay. So for the team, do you guys validate the virtual sample against anything else? Or what does that validation process look like?
Okay, so what we're looking at here is what we've put together as kind of our a digital library of our virtual fit approvals against what that final physical sample looks like. So this is an effort to kind of get our cross-functional teams more comfortable with the process, so they can see how similar we look with that virtual rendering versus the physical sample. And then we also, as you can see, have that flat sketch in there. And then what are the reasons why we did that virtual fit approval? So it's not only for cross-functional, but other fit engineers can look through this library, can see kind of why we were able to do that. Why should I be able to get more comfortable with the process? So like on this one, it's following one of our blocks, and it's the same fabric as the global version. So we should be able to fit approve fairly easily. Yeah.
Okay. Wow, that's interesting, Gina. And I would imagine this library just continues to grow, right?
Yes. So excuse me, the intention here is that we continue to build on this so that we have those assets available, but also for anybody that wants to be able to, see what we've done, continue to grow that trust. Yeah.
At what point in the timeline did you find that you needed to do this to get that trust going?
This is more of a recent thing, I think. I want to say within the last 2 years.
Okay.
But it was at the suggestion of one of the fit engineers that wanted to start, I think, please, if anybody from Columbia is listening, correct me if I'm wrong. But I think it was an attempt, or the intention was to kind of build that momentum and be able to share across the cross-functional teams. Again, because we're working remote to a certain extent.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Awesome. So I know this is one of the hardest things, right? When you are embarking into 3D, it's this, how do I trust what I'm really seeing is going to, when it hits the floor pad, that it's going to be okay, and that I can, feel comfortable and get some sleep between now and when it goes on a boat and ends up in the store. So what would you guys say is have been your biggest concerns with verifying digital garments? And have you developed any tools or workarounds within your process, or with your cross-functional partners to help with that issue?
So one category that I have had trouble with, or, it's just harder to see in 3D is these special occasion dresses for girls. And these are dresses with specialty fabric, tulle, crinoline, poofy, multiple layers. But that does not mean that we don't request it in 3D. It's still a great tool for our cross-functional partners to review design intent. I just make sure to see a physical fit sample.
Yeah.
And the software will one day catch up. So we're still going with it because one day it will. It's just important to know on our end where our struggles are.
Sure.
And also to let the software companies know what areas we're having trouble with. That way they can improve. Libby,
That's
do you
a
have
really good
anything?
point.
When Elizabeth first started, we had trouble with one of the dresses that she had that had wire sewn into the edge of the skirt. So it just looked like this big loop. So we, in 3D, we're like, how do you do this? And luckily we found it in like some chat form and we tested it and we could replicate how that wire looked in the skirt. It was really cool. Yeah.
Wow, that's very cool. That's super high tech. That's advanced 3D training. Awesome. Okay.
For us, I think there's the functionality part of it, the like a helmet or a ski boot or something like that. That's an additional asset that I think is still to come.
Meaning that you need those assets to fit with the garment in 3D, Gina?
Yeah, like if you have a helmet compatible hood, or if you want to be able to see that ski pant with fitting over that ankle gaiter fitting over a ski boot, I think there's that functionality part of it that's still to it's more to come.
Yeah. It continues to evolve, right? All of the software companies continue to push themselves forward. And I think that was a good point that you made, Elizabeth, is letting the software companies know when you're trying something and you're really struggling, because then they do work on it and try to find a solve. Awesome. Okay, so we put in this topic called the digital disconnect, because we've heard a lot in the last 2 years or so about how assets are evolving, parametric avatars evolving, everything continues to move forward, but that the enterprise might have different needs across the different working units. So I'm wondering if you guys have faced this at all. And Don, I know you can speak a little bit from our customers' perspective, what you've heard as well.
Anybody experience this? It depends on where people are, and how broadly the organization is using 3D.
Yeah.
All right, I'll take a crack at it. Libby, you want to say something?
I can touch on this topic, but
Good.
if you want to start, okay.
Go ahead.
I think this kind of harkens back to 2 years ago around this time, whenever we all had to go virtual, nobody could be in the office, and we had to view everything in 3D. Some of our teams did not like looking at everything on, I'm sorry, the Alvanon avatar. And I don't mean it, it's a tool. It's our fit tool and I love it, but it's not the sexiest tool. So people wanted to see it on parametric, there was different ways we were trying to get the teams engaged.
Yes.
Some of it, it's like, it wasn't even the mannequin that was the problem. It was the execution of the actual garment that didn't seem as real. And that's kind of on, the maker of the garment and goes back to look at the VQS and see, we would like this fabric tested in this way, Anyways, it's good to look at all the options that are out there. There's fun stuff that with very realistic avatars, even some kind of overlays with real models. That's it. I think there's more than just the fitting that can really come across and be used in different ways. So we can fit it on the avatar and know that it's right, and then go to how does this look on e-com? How can we use this for marketing? How can we like make this a perfect garment? You know, we're getting there slowly. We're now looking at more items in ray trace, and our suppliers who are making the garments are, you know, changing their eye to something a little bit more elevated. So it's getting there. There is that disconnect, but we do want to like have it speak in a way where you can, just like you're buying something from any of these companies who are on this call from .com off a picture.
Yep.
Can't you do that in a digital format?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the same exact.
So we heard this message loud and clear a few years ago from a lot of our large early adopters that, yeah, the fit form is very exciting to look at, right? And that's why we've made great strides toward creating more human-like avatars that can become textured. And that's stuff that is currently available. But getting back to the question of the disconnect is that what we've seen over time is when you have creative teams, marketing teams, doing the stretch and fit avatars and making them look like something for a different end purpose. And then you have a technical team who absolutely has fixed, standardized tools that are critically important for maintaining size and fit over time. And they're sitting in different places. So that becomes a digital disconnect for assets that are used for digital purposes. And to the extent where we've actually seen clients where the technical teams have been coerced into using the stretch and fit marketing avatars to do their technical fits, which we all know is a big no-no, right? So the point is just to highlight the fact that this potential exists in any organization. We know about it. We're working really hard to help solve that. So like you said, Libby, at the end of the day, there's this seamless human-like avatar that can be used for both purposes in whatever size you want to see it in, so that at the end of the day, the customer is best served. So big topic. I'm sure there are a lot of people on this call that struggle with it. They know about it. And we are acutely aware of it, and we're making great strides on trying to help industry with that problem. So that's the purpose of discussing the digital disconnect.
Awesome. Thanks, Don.
You're
So
welcome.
you touched on any size that they want to see it in. Elizabeth and Libby, can you talk us through the example we're looking at about fitting beyond the core size?
Yeah, so kids, we have a lot of big jumps between our sizes because kids grow very fast. So we use these 3D avatars, the extended size range, to review our grading and to make sure that fit consistency is kept throughout our grade. Instead of like physical forms, you may only have like one or two outside of your base form. With 3D, we can review all of our sizes, so the whole numeric, which is great for us.
Yeah, it's amazing for kids, right? Because they make big jumps, but not always a consistent, even jump, right? They just don't necessarily grow that way. They go through growth spurts and then plateaus. And I think this is a good example where you can see the different avatars and, you know, that the growth is not necessarily a perfect, you know, angle across all of their heads.
So not only in the last image can you review fit consistency, but you can also take it one step further for reviewing graphic placement, style lines. I mean, 3D, you can turn it on see-through, transparency, and make sure that your lines are grading consistently for seam placement. pocket placement. It's very helpful, especially with girls and kids where we see these huge jumps between the sizes.
Sure. And then
And
last
then-
one.
Yeah, here's an example of just using pressure maps or the tension maps to review fit consistency on all of our avatars for the sizes.
That's amazing. And do you feel like you're getting good buy-in, Elizabeth, from the vendor community about creating these assets for you in multiple sizes? Because I know it takes, depending on the software you're using, it can take a good amount of time to create the additional assets for the different sizes, right?
It can, but with the timing that we're experiencing, especially now with like supply chain and everything, sometimes it's easier and faster to review it over 3D than to see a physical sample and it's shipped to you.
Sure.
Libby, would you like to add anything?
I feel like we've seen a lot of money and time savings too, because in ladies, we used to get jump size sets for everything that we approved. And sometimes it would come in at the same time as our first fit. And then we would be like, okay, but the first fit is not approved. Of course, the triple XL is not going to be approved. So we said, at least in my category, I was like, scrap that. I don't want to see any more in physical form. I want to see just digital, and all my suppliers have come on board and even
That's awesome.
Embraced it so much as to, hey, we saw this, we corrected it. Here's the corrected, if they see something weird with the grading, they'll look at it first and filter it through their lens and then send it to us. So it's like double time saving.
Wow, that's incredible, Libby. So I'm hearing empowerment from the vendor community because now they can see it, right? They don't need to wait for you to tell them what's wrong with it. They can see it themselves and fix it.
That is right. Yeah. No.
Fantastic.
Over the years, over the last couple of years, we've seen this as one of the single biggest wins in 3D for most organizations is the size set avatar concept, where there was a day when certain brands would create entire physical fit forms in an entire, like they have a marching band in their office. But now in 3D, and like you say, the ability to empower your vendors to make better corrections and choices. And what does that do when you think about sustainability initiatives and all these important initiatives that organizations, this is a tons of garments that can be eliminated from the waste fill by utilizing 3D software, right?
Yeah.
And the right tools.
Definitely.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think the thing for people to remember who maybe aren't as far along as Libby and Elizabeth and Gina are on their 3D journey is that you don't necessarily have to do it on every single style. Right. But you can pick and choose where you're like, okay, this silhouette is kind of brand new for us. And we haven't really seen anything created this way before. So maybe this is one that we do want to go ahead and do it. And then we also hear companies who do it on a pretty regular basis. They do it on almost all of their styles just as a double check, or they empower their vendor to do it on all styles. And then if the vendor sees something that's strange, then they might shoot it over to the brand and say, hey, can you look at this? I think we should adjust something.
We've seen a couple questions come in on, sample reduction and which always ties back to sustainability. Can you guys tell us what your rule is right now for seeing a physical sample? At what point has 3D enabled you to bring those samples down? What's your current metric for fit samples, physical fit samples?
For us, we like to have first fit approval.
First submit of a physical sample.
Yes, first submit of a physical sample. We want that to be right the first time. And that's really hard to get to. That's something that our leadership has challenged us with for years now. And the only way that we've really been able to get there is being able to get the corrections done in 3D before it gets to the physical format. So,
And that's a corporate guideline.
yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
So a place like Walmart,
big
that's a hell of a
metric.
lot of samples, right?
It's a lot because we used to go all the way to third on a lot.
Ooh, wow. Well, that's
Not
common.
nice.
Very common. Yeah. Gina, how about you?
Gina?
We, I think we try to get as far as we can in virtual, and I mean, if it's possible to do a virtual fit approval, then we will do that. That's really, it's up to the fit engineer and how comfortable they feel with what they're working on and what their relationship is with the cross-functional team, and how complicated it is and all sorts of stuff. But I mean, if we can do a virtual fit approval, then we encourage the team to do so. The fit engineer can do a double check on fit model if necessary, but that's, again, it's up to them and how comfortable they feel with it. But we do need to get physical samples
Yes.
to fulfill other things, but
Yeah.
So
Well, and you're talking about performance too, right, Gina? If it's a ski pant or a if you're climbing a mountain in it, you really need to be sure you can climb a mountain in it.
Yeah, yes. So there's definitely reasons why we need to have samples in the office, either, wear testing or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But it all goes back to how comfortable the team is and what is that trust level. And it's the whole thing is an exercise in trust.
Yeah,
absolutely.
for sure.
So Tracy, just a housekeeping here. Oh,
Yeah.
Look at that. I
Here
was
we
wondering.
are.
We had allowed an hour and 15 minutes because we knew we would probably have a lot of questions. So, here we are, an hour in, and we have 15 more minutes. For those of you who'd like to hang out with us, feel free to do so. If you have to drop off, we understand. But this is kind of the part of the program we're going to start fielding some questions. So where do we begin?
Awesome. So Jordan has been monitoring the chat here. Let me just jump over there. And I think he's going to pepper us as a panel with some questions. So let's see what we get.
Tracy, I think I might need you to make me a host again. So that
sorry, Jordan. One second.
Okay. There's a whole bunch of questions coming in, which is awesome. First of all, overall, thank you all so much. You really just everybody's responding, and the response has been super awesome. For everybody watching, this is being recorded. It'll be available. Majority of the questions coming in are about whether it's being recorded or not. It will be recorded. It'll be made available after and on demand. So you can come back and watch it as many times as you want. I hope you binge it 900 times. So the first question that I have for everybody is really kind of an amalgamation of all the questions or the most popular questions, which focus around which program is best. And at Alvanon, we like to stay agnostic. And I'm not asking that question to you guys. What I would like to ask is the considerations around choosing a program. I think rather than, Alvanon's always been very agnostic. And it's because we've seen working with everybody that each program offers its own solutions to different problems. So is there a best kind of process that you have all found when approaching how to find the right program or working with multiple programs or anything like that?
Do you guys want to take this or not?
No, so why did, sorry, I zoned out for a second. What was why did we choose the program that we're with? Is that
not necessarily why did you choose the specific program you're with, but there's a lot of people kind of asking about, obviously what is the best program, but what were your general considerations when choosing a program, and what are you looking for? And what are the right questions to ask when you are looking for a program?
When we first were looking at programs, loft was the ability to render loft was the biggest concern, being an outdoor company. And I would say we've done well with what we've chosen.
That it's a tough question to answer generally. It's going to depend on the organization. You know, in our experience, we find out people spend an inordinate amount of time trying to choose a software when they should probably just get started somewhere, because eventually they might be using multiple softwares anyway. So I guess the top line advice here is don't wait too long to make a choice. It's better to get in somewhere and start using it, because that choice may change over time anyway, the more you learn about it.
And really the process flow or whatever it is that you come up with as a brand, I would think could be transferable to another software. So it's the process of getting your teams used to working in this kind of environment and understanding how to utilize those virtual assets. I think putting together a virtual quality standard, again, would be somewhat transferable between softwares as well. What you're looking for probably isn't going to change as a brand. It's how does that software deliver on what your brand needs?
Jordan, I hate to jump the line here on the questions, but I have a question that I think that many people might want to hear the answer to. It is specifically to Gina, and I'm gonna read it verbatim, and then you answer it as best you can. Okay.
Okay.
This person saying, as I work for a company whose apparel is very function first, have you moved past live model fittings? And if so, do you have confidence in the garment functionality? We're very much looking forward to adding 3D to our toolkit, but very hesitant to let go of fitting on a live fit model.
Okay, so I would say yes and no. I mean, we're confident in what we're doing in virtual, and we have a solid block library to lean on to get things started. But for high performance garments, I think there is always going to be a need to be able to review those on a human and be able to get those comments from your human model about how does it feel when they are in that action. Whether it's skiing or snowboarding or water skiing or whatever it is, there's that tactile kind of movement that's a human response, I guess, that I don't know that you can get from an AI experience, but you can get as far as you can eliminate a certain amount of prototypes while you're trying to get there, and then do your final evaluation in virtual or in physical, sorry.
It's such an important distinction. 3D enables better and earlier decision-making until you get to a physical sample where you can do a thorough double check, right?
Exactly.
You know, I don't think anybody is saying that there's never a sample again, but how do we use 3D to make better decisions to get us to that first physical garment? Because the body, you know, the 3D avatar is not going to talk to you. It doesn't have squishy bodies. It's not going to have that nice, you know, range of motion movement a human's going to have. But that's not a reason. That's not a reason to discard 3D. It's actually an opposite reason to do that.
Yeah, and there's, I mean, the time savings and the environmental savings of not shipping a garment across the water, being able to have teams look at that pattern, make informed decisions about what they're seeing, and maybe make a quicker turn on getting 2 or 3 virtuals in the time that it would take to get one physical.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Tracy, did you have any questions that popped out at you, or Libby, did you have something to follow into that?
Just on the topic of, you know, items that you feel like are not there yet with the technology, swim, anything intimate, something where you need a soft body. We always fit on a fit model for swim, so why wouldn't there be a soft body in digital? So but I feel like it's funny because I get the most pushback from my swim suppliers, but they do the best work.
Yeah.
And it looks so good. And we can kind of look at it and say, oh, can we, change this ruffle shearing ratio? Can we're still doing things in there that will affect the physical and save us on time. So where we can, when we get to the fit, we can just look at the function and not look at how big is that ruffle? Is it overpowering?
So really, it's about what can this do for me instead of focusing on what it can't do for me.
Yes.
Because
yes,
if you focus
positive.
on the can't, you're not going to get anywhere.
Yes.
Yeah, very true. Oh my gosh, Don, there's like 300 questions I've flagged so far that we need 2 more hours of Q&A. Jordan, did you have any others?
So go ahead, Tracy. We have 6 minutes.
There was a good question that came in from Gina, actually, and it seemed there were a couple under this umbrella, but about buy-in from the rest of the team. Gia asked, how do you get design on board with fit approving in 3D without a physical sample? And this is a question mirrored by a lot of people. They've had issues with, other designers or weaning designers and merchants off physical samples. So how do you go about the buy-in?
I think you need to, it's a slow process. It's not a flick of the switch kind of situation. I think assuring team members that they'll still get to see it, I don't know, at salesman samples or whatever, there's still an opportunity to see a physical sample. There's still an opportunity to make changes. You have a fabric swatch in your hand. There's a lot of opportunities to still do it, but do they need to see every style in virtual, in physical? And I think it's that, again, it's that trust of you can lean on your solid block library, or you can lean on your previous styles. You can trust your teams to make the right decisions because they have already made the right decisions when it comes to the design. So it's a long process to get that buy-in, and I think it's not a quick one.
Yeah.
I think,
Gina, when you talk about your block library, what does that do for you?
I think it's a security blanket, kind of. The just knowing that we have a solid starting point, and this is what we're referencing for that really amazing neckline that everybody loves, or that really amazing panel seam that everybody loves, whatever it is. Knowing that the virtual, you can line up your block pattern and your new style together. You can see them side by side in virtual. You know what that virtual block looks like, and you know that you love that physical version of that block. So why wouldn't you love the jacket that it's based off of, or whatever it is?
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you. Okay, Jordan, are we at time?
I think we're about at time. I just want to thank everybody for joining us today. Again, the whole webinar was being recorded and it'll be made available afterwards. I have a couple wrap-up notes here. I stopped sharing my screen a little bit too early, but thank you again, everybody, for joining us. Don, Tracy, Kim, Gina, Libby, and Elizabeth, thank you all so much. I think we really struck a chord with everybody. There was a lot of questions that came in, and I apologize to everybody that we did not have time to answer all of them. I would urge everybody to head over to alvanon.com, find us on social media, Alvanon on Instagram and Twitter, and connect with us on LinkedIn and stuff like that. So thank you all so much again in the final time, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Pat.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye. Well, we had, are we still on?
We are still on, and I believe Tracy, you might be host.
Oh, I am?
but
Okay, hold
everyone
on.
else is gone, right?
What do I do, Jordan?
I think just end it.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.